Not every battle announces itself with noise. Some wars begin quietly, inside conversations, familiar laughter, shared meals, and trusted relationships. The most dangerous threats to your peace do not come wearing horns or claws. They come smiling, supportive, and familiar. They sit beside you, they call you by name, they know your past, your weaknesses, and your dreams. And that is exactly why discernment is not optional, it is survival. There are forces that do not attack you directly. They drain you slowly, they confuse you subtly, they weaken you emotionally before you ever realize you are under attack. These forces do not always appear as strangers. More often they hide behind the faces of friends and family, not because those people are evil, but because influence travels through proximity. Whatever gains access to someone gains access to you if you are not alert. Many people lose their peace not because they lack faith, strength, or wisdom, but because they ignore spiritual signals in the name of loyalty, kindness, or fear of confrontation. You were taught to be loving, patient, forgiving, but no one taught you that love without discernment becomes self-destruction. Forgiveness without boundaries becomes permission, and proximity without wisdom becomes a doorway. This message is not about paranoia, it is about perception. It is not about accusing people, it is about protecting your spirit. Darkness does not always convince you through fear. Sometimes it convinces you through familiarity, through shared history, through emotional attachment, through guilt, through obligation. That is why the most spiritually sensitive people often feel exhausted around those closest to them and cannot explain why. If you have ever felt heavy after a conversation with someone who claims to love you, if your clarity disappears when certain people enter your space, if your confidence weakens after being around specific voices, you are not imagining things, energy transfers, influence moves, spirits recognize spirits, and not every presence that feels familiar is safe. The truth most people avoid is this: some relationships are not meant to destroy you loudly, they are meant to delay you quietly, to distract you subtly, to drain you slowly, and to keep you confused just long enough for you to doubt yourself. That is how hidden influence works. It doesn't push you off a cliff, it convinces you to stop walking forward. This is why your peace reacts before your mind understands. This is why your body feels tense even when words sound harmless. This is why your spirit resists certain environments while your emotions try to justify staying. Your intuition is not random, it is a warning system. And ignoring it is how many people lose years of their life without ever realizing what happened. In the coming parts, you will learn how to recognize the subtle signs of hidden influence, how to identify energy that does not serve your growth, and how to protect your peace without hatred, fear, or guilt. This is not about cutting everyone off. It is about seeing clearly, because once you see clearly, you can never be controlled quietly again. Hidden influence rarely forces its way into your life. It waits to be invited. It enters through trust, shared history, emotional bonds, and repeated access. That is why the people closest to you have the greatest power to either strengthen or destabilize your peace. Influence does not need permission when familiarity already opened the door, and once inside it works quietly, shaping thoughts, emotions, and decisions without ever announcing itself. One of the first signs of unhealthy spiritual influence is consistent emotional disturbance after interaction. You may feel drained, irritable, confused, or heavy without a logical explanation. Conversations may seem normal on the surface, yet something inside you shifts afterward. This is not coincidence. Energy exchanges do not require intention, they only require exposure. When someone carries unresolved chaos, bitterness, jealousy, or manipulation, prolonged closeness transfers that weight. Another subtle sign is distortion of your self-perception. After spending time with certain people, you may begin doubting your abilities, your calling, or your clarity, even if they never openly insult you. Passive remarks, disguised jokes, backhanded encouragement, or constant concern slowly erode confidence. Influence does not always attack directly. Sometimes it whispers until you repeat the doubt yourself. Pay close attention to those who react negatively to your growth. Hidden influence often reveals itself when you elevate. When you become more disciplined, peaceful, focused, or spiritually aware, some people feel threatened, not because you changed against them, but because your growth exposes what they refuse to confront within themselves. Their discomfort turns into subtle resistance, criticism, or discouragement masked as realism or advice. Control is another major indicator. This does not always appear as dominance. Sometimes it appears as dependency. People who constantly need your energy, validation, or attention, while giving little emotional safety in return, slowly drain your spirit. They may guilt you when you set boundaries, accuse you of changing, or question your intentions for protecting your peace. Control thrives when boundaries are absent. Hidden influence also thrives in confusion. If someone consistently leaves you uncertain, second-guessing yourself, or emotionally unsettled after interactions, that instability is not accidental. Peace clarifies, truth stabilizes, confusion weakens discernment. Anything that repeatedly disrupts your inner clarity without resolution deserves your attention, no matter who it comes from. Another overlooked sign is subtle competition. Not open rivalry, but quiet comparison. They mirror your goals, minimize your achievements, or shift conversations back to themselves whenever you share progress. This is not connection. It is insecurity feeding on proximity. When someone cannot celebrate your growth without internal tension, their presence becomes spiritually unsafe over time. You must understand this clearly. Recognizing these patterns does not mean condemning people. Many are unaware of what they carry, but awareness is your responsibility. You are not required to sacrifice your peace to maintain access. Distance is not punishment, it is protection. Discernment is not judgment, it is wisdom. Hidden influence rarely speaks in obvious threats. It uses familiar language, emotional logic, and reasonable tones. It sounds supportive while planting doubt. It sounds loving while restricting growth. This is why discernment must go deeper than words. What matters is not what is said, but what happens to you after it is said. One of the clearest disguises is concern. Some people question your decisions not to protect you, but to maintain access or control. Their questions seem caring, yet leave you feeling small, uncertain, or dependent. True concern empowers clarity. False concern weakens confidence while appearing responsible. Another disguise is humor. Repeated jokes that target your sensitivity, discipline, faith, or ambitions are not harmless when they leave emotional residue. Mockery disguised as laughter slowly conditions you to minimize yourself to maintain peace. Over time, you begin censoring your truth to avoid discomfort. This is influence doing its work quietly. Spiritual interference often hides behind familiarity, that's just how they are, becomes the excuse for ongoing disturbance. But repeated discomfort is information, not coincidence. Familiarity should feel safe, not draining. If your nervous system remains alert around someone, your spirit is recognizing inconsistency even when your mind tries to normalize it. Another powerful disguise is loyalty pressure. Some people rely on history to override boundaries. They remind you of past sacrifices, shared struggles, or family roles to justify present harm. This keeps you emotionally tethered while preventing growth. Loyalty without alignment becomes a trap, not a virtue. Watch for emotional reversal. Hidden influence often positions itself as the victim when confronted. Instead of accountability, you receive guilt. Instead of resolution, you receive confusion. This reversal protects their access while draining your energy. Peace does not require you to abandon yourself to keep someone comfortable. Disguised influence also resists silence. When you withdraw to reflect, reset, or regain clarity, some people feel threatened. They pressure you to explain, justify, or re-engage before you are ready. But silence is often where truth becomes clear. Anyone who fears your silence fears your independence. Understand this. Darkness survives through distortion, not exposure. Once you begin recognizing patterns instead of personalities, influence loses its power. You stop asking, what did they mean? And start asking, what did this cost me internally? That shift alone restores authority over your peace. Before your mind forms words, your body responds. Tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, sudden fatigue. a subtle urge to withdraw. These reactions are not weakness, they are intelligence. Your body is the first translator of spiritual information. It senses misalignment long before logic can justify it. Many people ignore these signals because they cannot explain them rationally. They override discomfort with politeness. They stay longer than they should. They smile while their spirit retreats. Over time, this self-betrayal accumulates, and peace begins to feel unfamiliar. What you ignore repeatedly eventually controls you. Your energy field responds to environments and people differently. Some interactions leave you lighter, clearer, more present. Others leave you heavy, scattered, and drained. This contrast is not emotional. It is energetic. You do not need dramatic conflict to justify distance. Loss of peace is reason enough. Another warning appears through recurring emotional patterns. If you consistently feel anxious, irritated, or defensive around someone, even when nothing is wrong, your spirit is responding to incongruence. Safety does not require effort. Alignment does not exhaust. When presence feels like work, something is misaligned. Dreams and intuition also act as messengers. Repeated symbols of danger, confusion, or emotional pursuit often appear when your conscious mind resists acknowledging truth. Intuition speaks softly but persistently. The more you ignore it, the louder it becomes through unrest. Spiritual disturbance often intensifies when you begin elevating. Increased clarity attracts resistance. As you become more aware, the discomfort you once tolerated becomes impossible to ignore. This is not regression, it is refinement. Awareness exposes what once hid in familiarity. Your nervous system reacts strongly to hidden influence because it recognizes unpredictability. You may feel alert, guarded, or emotionally vigilant. This is not fear, it is discernment activating. Chronic vigilance, however, drains the body. Distance restores regulation. Peace repairs what constant alertness breaks. Trust this. Your peace does not abandon you without reason. It withdraws to get your attention. It signals where your boundaries must change. Listening early prevents deeper damage later. Your body is not betraying you, it is protecting you. Hidden influence does not attach to everyone equally. It is drawn to depth, empathy, awareness, and inner strength. Those who feel deeply, think clearly, and carry calm presence naturally become emotional anchors for others. But what anchors can also become targets when boundaries are unclear. Sensitive souls are not weak, they are perceptive. They notice shifts in tone, energy, and intention. This awareness makes them valuable sources of emotional stability. But without protection, sensitivity becomes a channel through which others offload unresolved pain, chaos, or insecurity. Absorption without filtering leads to exhaustion. Strong individuals often attract hidden resistance because their presence exposes truth. They reflect what others avoid confronting within themselves. Instead of self-reflection, some people externalize discomfort. They project doubt, criticism, or subtle discouragement onto the one who mirrors their potential. Hidden influence often seeks to keep strong people busy emotionally. Drained people do not build, confused people do not advance, distracted people do not fulfill purpose. The goal is rarely destruction, it is delay. A delayed life feels safe to those threatened by growth. This is why strong individuals often experience guilt when setting boundaries. They are accustomed to carrying others. But carrying what is not yours eventually breaks you. Responsibility must be chosen, not imposed. Compassion without limits becomes self-neglect. Another tactic is normalization of sacrifice. You are praised for being understanding, patient, forgiving, while your needs remain unmet. Over time, you internalize the belief that protecting yourself is selfish. This belief benefits everyone who relies on your silence. Hidden influence also resists independence. When you withdraw to restore clarity, some people feel abandoned, but autonomy is not rejection. Anyone threatened by your peace depends on your unrest for their comfort. Understand this deeply. You were not designed to be accessible to everyone. Your sensitivity is a gift, but only when guarded. Strength without boundaries attracts depletion. Strength with discernment attracts alignment. Ignoring discernment does not cause immediate collapse, it causes gradual erosion. At first it looks like fatigue, then confusion, then emotional numbness. Eventually, you forget what peace felt like before constant disturbance became normal. This is how many people lose themselves without a single dramatic moment. When you dismiss inner warnings repeatedly, your intuition weakens, not because it stops speaking, but because you stop listening. This creates dependency on external validation. You begin asking others how to feel, what to think, and what to tolerate. Discernment silenced becomes vulnerability. Another cost is identity distortion. Prolonged exposure to subtle criticism, doubt, or emotional pressure reshapes how you see yourself. You shrink goals, you delay decisions, you lower standards, not because you lack ability, but because constant influence trained you to distrust your inner authority. Peace is not just emotional comfort, it is clarity. When peace is compromised, decision-making suffers. You become reactive instead of intentional, urgent instead of grounded. This opens the door for further manipulation because confused people are easier to guide than clear ones. Ignoring discernment also affects physical health. Chronic stress from unresolved emotional environments manifests as tension, sleep disruption, weakened immunity, and fatigue. The body carries what the mind refuses to confront. Healing requires distance from what harms, not just understanding it. Spiritual stagnation is another hidden cost. Growth requires space. Reflection requires quiet. When your inner world is constantly invaded, depth becomes difficult. You remain busy emotionally but unmoved internally. Motion replaces progress. Relationships also suffer. When you tolerate what disturbs you, resentment grows silently. This resentment leaks into other connections, affecting those who never caused harm. Unresolved influence spreads beyond its source. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Ignoring discernment does not preserve peace, it sacrifices it. What you avoid confronting today will demand attention later, often at a greater cost. Listening early is not harsh, it is wise. Protecting your peace does not require confrontation, explanation, or justification. It begins internally with permission to choose alignment over obligation, permission to honor what your spirit has been signaling for a long time. Guilt fades when you understand that peace is not selfish, it is necessary. The first boundary is energetic. You do not have to share everything. You do not have to explain your growth to those committed to misunderstanding you. Selective disclosure protects clarity. Silence is not deception, it is discernment in motion. Distance is another form of protection. Not abandonment, not punishment. Distance allows perspective. It removes constant stimulation and restores your nervous system. Anyone who truly values you will respect this pause. Those who resist it reveal dependence, not connection. Release the need to be understood by everyone. Understanding is mutual. Peace is personal. Some people can only meet you at the version of you they benefit from. Growth disrupts access. That discomfort belongs to them, not you. Protecting peace also means strengthening self-trust. When your intuition signals withdrawal, act gently but firmly, delay engagement, shorten interactions, change environments. These small adjustments restore authority without conflict. Compassion does not require self-sacrifice. You can care without carrying. You can love without absorbing. Healthy compassion respects limits. Anything that demands self-erasure is not love. It is imbalance. Consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need dramatic exits. You need steady alignment. Each time you choose peace over pressure, your discernment sharpens, your body relaxes, your clarity returns. Remember this, the people meant to grow with you will adjust. The people meant to remain will respect your boundaries. The rest reveal themselves naturally, without confrontation. Peace does not announce itself. It settles quietly when you choose yourself. There comes a moment when awareness can no longer be undone. Once you see clearly, you cannot return to blindness without betraying yourself. This is not loss, it is maturity. Growth always costs familiarity, but it rewards you with peace that no longer feels fragile. You will notice how calm returns when unnecessary access ends. Your thoughts slow down, your body relaxes, your intuition speaks without interference. This is your natural state. Peace was never something you had to earn. It was something you had to protect. Some people will fade quietly from your life, not because of conflict, but because alignment has changed. Let this happen without guilt. Seasons end, so clarity can begin. What is meant to walk with you will not require you to shrink. You will also notice discernment becoming sharper, not harsher. You will see patterns early. You will feel misalignment before attachment forms. This is wisdom, not walls. Protection does not isolate you. It refines your connections. Do not fear being misunderstood. Those committed to truth will recognize your peace as strength. Those threatened by it were never meant to stay. Approval is temporary. Alignment is lasting. Your peace will begin attracting different energy, calmer conversations, safer spaces, clearer minds. This is the reward of discernment. What you protect grows. What you tolerate drains. Remember this always. You are not responsible for managing everyone's emotions. You are responsible for honoring your own clarity. Peace maintained is power preserved. Walk forward quietly. Guard your energy carefully. Trust what your spirit reveals. When peace stays, everything else aligns naturally.